the computer.
All right, welcome, welcome, after school peeps. Nice to see you all. Generally in my day-to-day, I don't get to be with you much, so I'm really grateful for this opportunity. I'm Ray Garofano, for those who don't know me. I'm the childcare quality program administrator at the Child Development Division. And this is going to be, the next hour is going to be an overview of the new STARS model. And I'm going to be presenting what we present to for all of our STARS trainings. So, I'll probably go a little fast in areas that may not specifically apply to after school, but in designing the new STARS system, we wanted to ensure that it applied, that one system applied to all settings, which is was a goal, and I think we've achieved that. I just want to take a moment and introduce other team member who's here, who many folks will be interacting with in future. So Jacek, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Jacek Deptula. I am the business services specialist. So I work work in STARS. I process applications and answer questions via my own email address, but I also have the STARS email. So if you email the STARS email, probably be the one who answers that question. So
Jacek is newer to our team, but he has picked up the content very quickly and is fabulous at answering your questions or getting you the resources that you need. So please don't hesitate to reach out through that STARS email address. So I have a slide deck that I'm going to get going. Give me one moment. Share my screen. Okay, can everybody see the presentation in a slide mode? Great. Got there. So one thing, so I'm going to go. Oh, you do. Okay, hold on.
We didn't a second ago, but now we can.
What about now?
Nope, can see the notes.
Okay. So I think I need to stop sharing.
That's better. Well, no, we can still see the notes, but
yeah, you're not in. Am I still sharing?
Yes.
I need to share that. So just ignore what you're seeing right now, because I need to get this going. Do you see? Yeah, okay.
There you go. You're all set, Ray.
Okay. Oops. Am I still good? Okay. So my head's gonna be a little turned because my notes are over there. I'm not used to presenting on Zoom. We usually do this on Teams, so apologies. So what I was trying to say before technology got the better of me is that I'll run through the presentation, which kind of gives you a high-level overview of what the new model of STARS is about and how to kind of go through the process of engaging with STARS. And then hopefully we'll have a few minutes for questions and answer, but just want to reiterate that the CDD, Child Development Division, and Jacek are available to answer questions if there's things that we don't get to today. Also, there's resources such as our frequently asked questions and the guidance manual that could help you. Also, Vermont Afterschool will be your kind of resource to help you with your CQI plan and working through the STARS levels. So we changed STARS. Why? The Vermont QRIS was over 20 years old, so it was time for a change. Many states completed studies of the QRIS system and determined that the system that we had in place, which was the block system, did not actually impact high quality outcomes for children and families. So we looked at the most updated research. Many of you know that we've been kind of working on the revision of STARS for several years, and we were kind of hampered and delayed by COVID. But we took the latest research that showed us what impacted high quality outcome for children and families the most, and incorporated that into our new system. This gave us an opportunity to meet program needs and focus on elements proven to create positive child outcomes. Sorry, my dog is also now being needy, so sorry about that. So the new STARS, as I said, is based on the latest research, and the criteria is directly linked to positive outcomes for children. And we made sure that the same system applies to all settings. So whether you're an early childhood educator or an after school, the same rules apply to you. And STARS levels build clearly from one to the next. It is designed to promote equity with an equity lens on the whole system. And it's based on a CQI. The CQI plan will be the foundation of your STARS work, and will be a living document that you work with throughout your engagement with STARS. Another thing that we did with this revision is we untied the subsidy reimbursement rate from the STARS level, and that was really to promote equity, to ensure that all programs are receiving the highest STARS level subsidy rate. So the financial incentive wasn't necessarily a driver. Everyone was getting the highest reimbursement rate, so you could work on the quality improvements based on your capacity and your needs to your program. We also made sure that we included a pilot year. It's hard to believe that we're almost halfway through our pilot year. Our pilot year ends in June, at the end of this fiscal year 24, June 30th, 2024. So any program that's applying in this pilot year will be protected against the decrease in STARS level. We want all programs to use this year to become better acquainted with the new STARS system. So we want you to take advantage of these training opportunities to ask for assessments, ask for coaching and mentoring to really become familiar with the program. So when the pilot year ends, you have made yourself familiar and aware of what you need to do next to achieve that next higher STAR level. And the year is also intended to provide us with feedback on the new system to help us inform any new developments, training, and supports that might be needed to help programs achieve higher STAR levels. And the renewals, your expiration dates are not changing. So if you were previously engaged with STARS and your expiration date was like January of 24, it's still going to be that. That's not changing. So this new system is built based on 3 elements of quality: adult-child interaction, family and youth engagement, and responsive practices. STARS, many of you who are familiar with the old system know that it used to be based on arenas in the old system, and the new system focuses on these 3 elements. Adult-child interactions are mutual back and forth connections between adult and child. Nurturing and supportive adult-child interactions are foundational to learning. Family engagement is a shared responsibility in which schools and other community agencies and organizations are committed to reaching out to engage families in meaningful ways, in which families are committed to actively supporting their children's learning and development. So we want programs to really focus on engaging with family and youth in programming, developing programming, making policies, really getting families included and involved in how you build your programs. And then responsive practices are teaching strategies that are specific to individual children's and youth's interests, needs, and development level, family, culture, language, racial and ethnic diversity, and gender identity. And this responsive practice really requires teachers and providers to be aware of their own knowledge of the needs of the families and the various different cultures and differences that may be present in their program. Ooh. Sorry about that. So as I mentioned earlier, the new STARS is based on a CQI plan. So your CQI plan replaces your STARS application in this new system. And your program's CQI plan is a record of assessment-based improvement goals and evidence of your program's work to meet those goals. So basically, instead of submitting an application, you will be submitting a CQI plan. There's templates in the guidance manual, and the coaches at Vermont Afterschool can help folks and programs kind of work their CQI plan and understand how to develop one and how to implement one. And that plan becomes a living document and will record all the improvements that you're making and provide them evidence of those improvements to the division so you can achieve that next higher STAR level. So this is just a visual of how your CQI plan will encompass all three elements of quality: to adult children interactions, responsive practices, and family engagement. So the CQI plan is the process, and the three elements are the things that we have focused on that tell us, that research tells us have the most influential impacts for positive outcomes for children. So the system still has 5 levels, same as before, but the difference is what each level means. So in the current system, same as before, level 1 is regulatory compliance. Level 2 now is a self-study level, in which you create your STARS CQI plan. Level 3 is when you start implementing that CQI plan. 4 and 5 are improved and full implementation of that CQI plan. So again, going back to the CQI plan is your foundation document, and your whole STARS level and your quality improvement work lives with that plan, and it will be represented in each STARS level. So as you develop one, that will be kind of your Bible on how to increase quality and how you will demonstrate that you have achieved those goals that you laid out in that CQI plan. So this just shows that each level builds on the next. Each STARS level has areas in all those 3 elements. So in level 2, you have to demonstrate that you have achieved different goals in each different element, and so on. And you kind of build on each level until you're fully implementing at STAR level 5. So again, level 2, this is more of a detailed, the next few slides will show you in detail what level 2 means and what it means to do a self-study. So we want you to engage in a self-assessment, identify your professional knowledge, your staff's professional knowledge, and start developing your CQI plan. So this kind of messy slide shows what is the process of identifying your staff's knowledge in the various different areas that we want you to be thinking about. This is kind of broken out in the next slide, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide, but basically we want you to, in short, to determine what the gaps are and then include those gaps in your CQI plan, and you get to choose which areas you want to focus on. So we're not, requiring that you do a self-assessment and then include everything that you identified as a gap in your CQI plan. You get to kind of pick and choose what works in your program and where you want to put your focus and your resources. So there's 6 self-study categories that programs should target when considering your staff's knowledge. So they're the Vermont Early Learning Standards, or so for after-school programs, it's the After-School Program Quality Standards, developmentally appropriate practice, program assessment, child observation, advancing equity, and strengthening families. And in your case, it would be the Youth Thrive survey. So those are the kind of areas where you're thinking about, what does my staff know about these different things? So for example, for Vermont After School Program Quality Standards, you want to look at your staff's knowledge and determine, have your staff taken any trainings in the Vermont After School Program Quality Standards, or can they provide a written reflection of what they know about the Vermont After School Program Standards? So if yes, if the answer is yes, you determine they have the knowledge, then you can provide evidence of that knowledge and include that in your plan when you submit your application or plan. If you identify that they have not met those standards, then you can choose you can choose this one thing as a gap and include it in your CQI plan to work on having your staff gain that knowledge. For developmentally appropriate practice, the standard is met if your staff has received trainings from NAEYC, providing written reflection, have a college level coursework on child development learning, or have the Vermont Early Care Educator License or EC endorsement. And again, if you find that your staff meets that standard, you include the evidence and you can apply for that level, or you include that in your CQI plan to work on that as one of your goals.
Can I just go back? Can you go back to the last one just for a second? Because I know this is going to be a question. So receive training from NAEYC. That's could it be training from? Most people aren't going to get training from NAEYC because that's an early childhood organization, right? Okay, all right. So they can have coursework in child development from their college,
but
or
you can provide a written reflection.
Written reflection, right? I just want to point that out to people so they don't feel like that's something they have to do. Make sure you understand that this is an or. So there's other things that you can do to meet this requirement.
Yeah, and I think, again, going back to kind of beginning when I said, like, we tried to design a system that applied to all settings. We don't want people to get hung up on what you just said. Like, of course, after school professionals aren't going to be getting early childhood education training, but there's other ways of meeting the standard, and you're not going to be, this standard will apply to you regardless of if you're an after school program or an early childhood education program. It's just kind of looking beyond like that lens of early childhood education for after school programs. So program assessments for you, it's the PQA. So it's either taking trainings or you've done a PQA assessment in the last 2 years, or the Head Start partner does not apply to you. So you have 2 out of the 3 that would apply to you for after school programs. And then child observation, I think for after school, it would be really describing the observation process or any training or coursework. So obviously the TS Gold would not apply to Vermont to after school programs, but the other 2 do. And then advancing equity in early childhood settings, I think this area definitely applies to your work. Maybe even more so with the age group that you work with and the different populations that you work with. So it's really thinking about, has your staff taken trainings or coursework on implicit bias, cultural competency, inclusion, or responsive teaching practices, or you can include a written reflection. So again, kind of going back to when you're doing this assessment of what your staff knows and what their knowledge level is, this is where you're thinking about, oh, if we're missing this, do we want to include it in our CQI plan? So we're working towards this, and we have the time to get our staff trained or make sure they can provide the documentation if they're doing self-reflections. And then for the surveys, this is you will use the Youth Thrive survey, and the links are available in our guidance manual. And Yasik, if you have a minute, Maggie usually does this first. If you can put that link, if you know it, if not, I can do it at the end. The Youth Thrive survey is published by the CSSP, and it's not a complicated survey to do. It's just maybe something that your program has not done. So if you're not familiar with it, go on the website for the Center for Study of Social Policy and download the survey just to take a look at it, to get yourself familiar with it. And again, if you do that, your staff takes that survey, then you can demonstrate that you have that knowledge or identify it as a gap. So knowledge by program type is going to differ, obviously, for each different program type. So for after-school programs, the CQI plan will address your knowledge gap if the combined knowledge of all program staff does not meet the knowledge requirements. So we are not looking for every single staff member to know everything in all the elements. We're looking at combined knowledge of all your staff, your whole team, and making sure that the knowledge is within the program. So on level 2, the next thing you do is, after kind of identifying those gaps, is you start developing your CQI plan. And you need to have goals in your CQI plan, and those goals may be based on your results of the self-assessments, the Youth Thrive survey, or knowledge gaps in the various areas that we just talked about. So, it's really thinking about, what do I know? What do I not know? What does my team know? What do they not know? If I think I know it, can I demonstrate it? Do I have evidence for it? If I know I don't have it, do I want to include it in my CQI plan to work on it? So there is some, autonomy here, that you get to choose what you want to include in your CQI plan. If you identify a gap in knowledge, we're not expecting you to do all of it at once. Continuous quality improvement by nature is ongoing. So we want you to continuously be thinking about where the improvement areas are, and which area works for your program at the right time. This is an example that's of a template that's kind of filled in with a sample of a CQI plan. So each CQI plan will have goals and objectives. So these are all the goals, and each you'll see that you have to have goals in each areas of each elements of quality. So you have to have a goal related to adult-child interactions, family and youth engagement, and responsive practice. And then you do your objectives based on those goals. So your goals are more broad, and then your objectives are very specific. What are you actually going to be doing to meet that goal? And at this level, when you get to your objective, is you start a plan, do, study, act cycle. I will say that there is a specific training that we've been providing by the CDD staff for the CQI and the PDSA cycle, to really do a deep dive around that and what it means and how to actually go through one. So if you haven't signed up for those, go to our website and sign up for those if you're interested. But the cycle we expect is not like an overnight thing. You are basically going to be have this goal and objective in mind, and then you're going to plan and then do something, review it, and then make changes if necessary, and kind of determine, did it work or not. So that's a PDSA cycle that you'll engage in for each one of your objectives. And they take time. by nature, because we want to ensure that whatever you plan is effective. And if it isn't, we want you to do something different, not to continue doing something that's not effective and doesn't have positive outcomes. So this is where your evidence comes in, and the kind of, this gives you, and this is in the guidance manual. We want to make sure that you check your evidence and make sure that you actually have the knowledge that you're saying you have in your CQI plan, because when you submit your application, which is your CQI plan, YASC is going to review, like, if you said you have this knowledge, do you have a piece of evidence that shows, that demonstrates you have that? So you need to make sure whatever you are indicating you have the knowledge of, you have evidence. There is in the guidance manual table that kind of gives examples of various evidence types. There's a it's right here. Maggie put it in our slide deck. So the various suggested types of evidence to support your CQI plan and what your big goals are. So you can use a quality credential report, completed forms, written reflection, observation records, communication example, survey results. So there's many things that you can use, and you're not kind of tied into just like having you know, a book or some document. There's we wanted to make sure that this was flexible, and it actually, you had various ways to prove that you have the knowledge that you have. So at level 3 is when you begin your early implementation. So you're setting your goals. So remember, level 2, you just develop that CQI plan. You're not really starting to work it. You're just kind of identifying what are your goals and what are your objectives, and you're just kind of putting that on paper and documenting that. At level 3 is when you actually start working those goals and working on achieving those goals. So again, you want to hit each one of the 3 various elements of quality and make sure they're all included. For adult-child interactions, you will do you'll do an assessment. So for after-school programs, it's the PQA assessment, and you can use the feedback from that assessment to include in your CQI plan. So again, it's learning what the gaps are and where the areas of improvement might be, and then including that in your CQI plan. So we have a record of what you're saying that you want to work on to improve your quality. So I'm not going to go through this for after school. It's a PQA. So there's a school age program quality, youth program quality assessment, and the school age program quality assessment. And those assessments can be requested through Vermont AEYC, the SPARQS program, and the assessors. There's qualified trained assessors that will come out and do the assessment, perform the assessment for your program. And then there's coaching for your CQI plan that's provided by Vermont Afterschool, of course. So be sure to take advantage of those resources. And I believe the program assessments are going to be available on November 1. I think there's going to be communication going out to the field, letting you know how to request those assessments. So here for the family engagement, we want you to do the Youth Thrive survey. So at level 2, you wanted to kind of assess, have we done this before? You don't actually have to do it. But if you haven't done it, to go up to level 3, we want you to do it. So here's where you actually do the survey, and then you create goals and work toward those goals using the results from that survey. For responsive practices, we want you to consider the needs and the interests of each and every child in level 3 and evaluate how your program currently meets the needs of each child. consider if the program activities are developmentally appropriate, and then make sure that or consider if the program activities align with the Vermont Afterschool Program standards, and build on goals and information that you laid out in level 2, if applicable. If you had something in responsive practices that you want to work on, you want to build on those for this level. Again, you want to make sure that you're hitting each of the elements of quality and address goals and objectives. And then the tools that you're going to use are the self-assessment, the Youth Thrive survey, and responsive practices, which is the observations, the PQA. So levels 4 and 5 are improved and full implementation of the goals that you set. So for level 4, we want to make sure that each of your program's classrooms are receiving assessment by a SPARQS assessor using the PQA tools. And this time, the assessment's going to be scored or rated. So at level 3, you have the option of, and you know what? So Trisha, correct me. The PQA is not scored, correct?
The PQA is not scored.
Okay.
So what we will be doing for the PQA is, hopefully everybody on this call is familiar with it. It's a pyramid, and at the bottom is safe environment and supportive environment. So if you're looking at safe environment and supportive environment, then you will likely be at level 4. If you've mastered those kind of areas of the PQA and you're working and have achieved the next levels, the higher levels, which are in interaction and engagement, you would be at a higher level. So it all builds upon each other. And assessors will help explain that and work with you when they come out to your program.
And STAR level 5, this doesn't, so we want to make sure, again, that each classroom has had an assessment, but obviously a higher score doesn't apply to Vermont Afterschool. So it's going to be, I think what we're looking for is improved implementation, right? Like in the PQA framework, the assessors will determine whether or not you have done enough to meet the 5-star level requirements for the PQA, because there's no specific score to be higher in that tool. And then for family and youth engagement standards, we want at level 4, we want you to measure the effectiveness of programmatic structures that strengthen families and engage youth voice that were implemented in level 3, and then support at least 3 family protective factors or Youth Thrive protective factors from the CSSP frameworks. And then level 5, we want you to provide support to families to develop and strengthen 3 or more of those protective factors from Youth Thrive, and involve families and youth in program leadership. And then for responsive practices, we want at level 4, we're looking, so the number 1 does not apply to after school programs, the TS Gold or ASQ, right? The ASQ doesn't apply to you all, right? And then,
no, it does not. No, it does not.
Okay. So we're going to want you to conduct the observations using child youth voice on a regular basis, recording those observations and making sure that you're including those observations and information from them in your learning activity and planning. So considering the youth's interests, needs, developmental level, racial and ethnic diversity, and aligning those with the Vermont Afterschool Program standards. And then at level 5, everything applies except the TS Gold or the ASQ, the first one. Also, we want it to be developmentally appropriate. So at level 4, in summary, the CQI plans will address goals that will move programs towards STARS level 5. So again, this is a living document and it's continuous. You're continuously looking to see where do you want to improve and identifying those goals, communicating those goals to the division, and then working the plan that you laid out until you achieve those goals. And then you go back and kind of start over. And you don't have to go back to STAR level 2 at this point. If you've achieved everything for STAR level 4, then you're going to think about, okay, where can I make tweaks and improvement plans to reach level 5? And at level 5, we want you to be thinking about like best practices in your, setting, in your programs, and for your programming, and addressing things that we didn't include in STARS, based on your preference, based on what your specialty is, what you excel at, what you want to focus on next for your program, for your families, for your kids that are you're serving. At level 5 is where you get to kind of be creative and focus on what you want to improve on. And again, the process is the same. You identify those things, you let us know, you tell us how you're going to achieve them and work that plan, and then demonstrate that you've achieved it. So this, I don't believe, applies to Vermont Afterschool. Trisha, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you all are not going to be NAEYC accredited or Head Start.
No, this is not going to apply to after school programs. No.
But this does. So yeah. The state, the administration has invested in a support program called the System for Program Access to Resources for Quality Supports, SPARQS for short. We love our funky, cute acronyms at the Child Development Division. So SPARQS is a support program available to all early childhood and after school programs. And you don't have to be engaged in STARS. You don't have to be working a STARS plan. But this is a quality support program that is available to you if you are a regulated program in Vermont that will help provide coaching, mentoring, training, and resources. And the coaching will come from Vermont Afterschool. Experts, as you know, in this field will help you work, develop your CQI plan, determine what goals and objectives make sense for your program, and really help you work that and answer questions about how to engage in STARS or how to just improve your quality. You don't have to engage in STARS to use this service. We hope that you do. We hope that you want to improve your program and engage with the system that communicates where you are quality-wise, but this is available to you regardless. And services are going to begin rolling out. Trisha, are you guys?
November 1st.
November 1st. Yeah, for early childhood, they're a little bit delayed, but for you all, in just about a week or so.
Well, the quality supports are available now, but assessors will start going out November 1st. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. So you can reach, obviously you all know the resource that you have in Vermont Afterschool and their expertise, but, think about their expertise related to STARS and your CQI planning as well. And I know a lot of you go to them for professional development, but this is another area where they can really work on helping you how to develop your CQI plan and how to work it to improve the different various areas of your programming. So that's my spiel.
I have a couple of comments, if you don't mind. Oh,
let me stop sharing so I can see you.
Yeah, that would be great. Sorry, and my thing just says Vermont After School. Let me just put my name up here, which I never did. Okay. So there's one question and a couple of comments that I want to get to, Ray, but first, I just want to be clear, as Ray just mentioned, STARS, every program that's licensed is starting at 1 star. You do not. You can choose as a program to stay at 1 star. There is no mandate from the state that you move up in stars. Really, it is about whether or not your program wants to take the time to do this process as a way to improve quality. There are other ways to improve quality. You know, you could have us come out and do some coaching. You can do professional development. I do realize that it does take a lot of time. But really, what we want to avoid is this. You know, there was a comment, let's see, that one person needs to be responsible for this. One person probably needs to gather up all of, okay. One person will need to gather everything and submit it, but this is a team process. Your whole staff should be involved, because when you're putting together the CQI plan, the ones that have to implement it are the staff, right? So they need to be part of the process. I do want to get to some questions and comments so that Ray can give her insights into them. The first question was way back. It was around approved trainings. Are there other approved trainings or trainers that after school staff can receive credit for? So it said NAEYC trainings. What about trainings? I'm assuming if they did trainings at the national conference, what about Vermont Afterschool conference? Could they count other trainings, Ray? And Christine, I don't know, you had the question. I don't know if there were other things you had in mind too.
Yes. Short answer, yes. I think if there are trainings that are specific to your field and help your program build their quality and improve their quality, they can be counted and they can be used as evidence for your staff's knowledge.
Right. So for example, Vermont Afterschool, we are a sponsor. Our trainers are in the instructor registry for Northern Lights. We offer a lot of trainings. We're developing some new trainings right now around equity and inclusion. We also have a lot of youth work methods trainings and trainings around SEL. I would imagine that if folks are taking those trainings through Vermont Afterschool, those can count as evidence. Correct, Ray?
Yeah. Okay,
great. All right. Does that answer your question, Christine? Great. Then we had a couple of comments that I just want to share. Let's see. Some concerns about the immense amount of resources, time, and education that people are going to have to put in to prove the quality of their program. We're talking about a new equitable system, but this person feels it's unattainable for, I assume, many, if not most, after-school programs statewide. The site director shouldn't be spending that amount of time.
Yeah, so let me address that. I think, and thank you for the comment. You know, I don't know how many folks in the room were familiar with the old STAR system. The old system was very administratively burdensome. It required a lot of paperwork. It required an application that was very long and time-consuming and overwhelming to complete. In designing this new system, we focused on getting away from, you have to have this document to prove that you meet this level of quality. Like one thing I remember was like a manual for families in the old system. Like if you had a program manual for your families, you could check that off. And if you didn't have one that met like the standard of the CDD, you had to develop one. So I think one thing that is really important to remember is that many programs are already doing a lot of this stuff. So it's not that we're asking you to go and get new knowledge or go get new training or, you know, when you start engaging with the system, we're hoping that programs are thinking less in a way of, I need to have this and just check it off, and more in a way of like, what area in my program do I want to focus on improving? And it doesn't have, as long as it meets one of those, all of those three elements of quality, it doesn't have to be everything that I mentioned, right? Like this is it's progressive, and it's meant to be a continuous process that you engage in. And best practice we learned as we were doing research and all these evaluations in the last several years is that it works better to improve quality if programs are thinking about improving quality on a regular basis. So our hope is that once you start delving into the process and what is required, that you realize that you're already doing a lot of these requirements. And if you identify gaps, then you take what works for your time and your resources and take that one step and achieve that. So it's not supposed to be, you're not going to go from a star level 2 to like a star level 4. That's intentional because we want you to work at your pace with your resources to what's achievable, focusing on program quality. I hope that answers the question. And, also remember that we have until June 30th as a pilot year. So if you're not going to lose anything by engaging in this system at your own pace, and you can, look at the application, you can look at the CQI, you can look at the guidance manual, you can request an assessment and get familiar with those tools, again, at your pace and as your resources allow.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Kelsey.
Hi, y'all. I'm Kelsey. I'm confused about, I guess, the intention of STARS if it's not tied like it formerly was to subsidy, and then it's also not tied to anything else in the future. And there's no expectation that programs, sorry, the jets are going over, that programs expand further than a 1-star. I'm not seeing the intention in the participation, if it's a required participation, if it's a self-evaluation where we're self-evaluating, we are then putting our staff through professional development that we know that they need, and we're working towards a goal. This feels backwards. We don't have someone coming in and evaluating the program and saying, here's where we see a need, and then putting the system in place. It's us for what seems like no end goal besides our own quality participating in this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I just don't see the end goal of this is aside from us self-participating if it's mandatory.
So that's totally fair. And I think, we're hearing from various programs, like, what is my incentive? Why do I want to engage in this? I'm not going to earn any more money. I'm not, it's not tied to subsidy. I think, and you mentioned it, you said besides our own quality. And I will highlight and bold that. Like, that is where we want programs to focus on. And the reason why it is a little bit backwards from where we were is because we want programs to focus on their own quality. And we're not going to, so in Act 76, there is in July of 24, so next year, there is this big pot of money that is slated to be for quality incentives. The division has not developed that program yet, so there may be some incentives tied to STARS levels, and that hasn't been fleshed out yet. I don't know what that program is going to look like, but it was actually intentional that we didn't tie that. We don't want to incentivize programs other than you want to improve your quality. That's your incentive. And we hope
but
that
the amount,
we hope that that's incentive enough for you to engage with the program and learn about a CQI, because like CQI, like the whole revision of STARS is actually engaged. It's in its own CQI plan. We're going to be doing the same process on the whole system. Like in 3 years, we're going to say, we're going to have our own PDSA. Did what we set out to do achieve the outcomes that we wanted? And if not, what do we need to tweak and change? So it is this continuous thing that will not it's not intended to have an end. because we want programs to think about quality regularly and what can they do to improve their quality. Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I'm just, if we are starting with hypothetically as 4 stars, taking everyone down to a 1 star.
You're not going to be going down to 1 star though.
And no one will go back. No one's going back.
Going back. All you have to do, so if you're a 4-star program, what you have to do is demonstrate the knowledge level at that 4-star. And if you do that within the pilot year, you're not, and if you haven't met those goals that are in the new system, you're not going to lose a star level. You're just going to get to have another 3 years to build on what's required in the new system. Does that make sense?
It does. I thought that one of you just said that everyone started at 1 star.
No, when you become a regulated program, you're automatically at 1 star.
You're automatically, if you are
licensed, you get a license, you're automatically star level 1. So you don't have to do anything other than become regulated to become a 1-star program. So as soon as you get a license, you're a 1-star program. Then it's up to you. Let's say you're a brand new program you just opened, you have 1 star. And then it's up to you to engage with the system. And if you started as a brand new program, you're 1 star, then if you feel like you have you've hired staff that have the knowledge area that you might actually meet the requirements for star level 3, then you can submit those in your CQI plan. They'll be reviewed. And if we see that you've met those, you can go from a 1 to a 3-star if you already have those qualifications and knowledge areas. But if you're already engaged in the system and you've been established program, you don't lose a star. Nobody's going to lose a star level.
Okay. I'm trying to just grasp the
way
in which our program staff, I think the hang up on the expectation that we're trying to pull knowledge that isn't rooted in education. I agree with that because we want to be equitable, but also the time and resources that's going to put on our site directors to be taking that time rather than in their programs and part of their programs and making their programs quality to just receive information to show essentially is what feels to be the most inequitable in terms of resource time, and also the system that many of us are very educated in this field, but our program staff and our site directors may not be yet. And instead of the time that they can be putting into getting more educated in that, they're going to be pulling documentation. Does that make sense?
Well, the frontline staff who may not be as well educated are not going to be pulling documentation. I mean, what do you mean by that?
Our site directors will be, though, and taking time away from
the site coordinators. Yes. Yeah.
Well, can I chime in here? Because
sure.
I know what she's talking about. I feel like this does not address the small programs. I just took over a really small, very failing program in that they had 3 directors last year. There is no one above me. There's a board that meets once a month if they're lucky, and they make decisions that you don't even have the right to make as a site director. And we can't find help. Like we have 2 people working for us. One is 18 years old, just graduated high school last year, worked in the program part-time. So he has some knowledge of what's going on. The other one is a 20-something-year-old man who just needed a part-time job. And we have a student aide. If one of those people has been out, then I'm on the floor running around like a nut because it's just me and that other guy and the student aide. And we don't have time to really do anything in the budget. I'm supposed to be working like 20 hours a week, and I'm already putting in 25 to 30 hours a week because I don't have time to do anything else. How does this program help us when we can't even find help? And I'm just feeling, I'm kind of feeling lost here because I don't know any other way. We've been advertising like crazy. Nobody applies for the job. And then there's all these huge expectations as soon as they come on board. They have to have all these trainings, all this stuff, all this education. They have to have all of this other stuff within a year or 3 months or 4 months. And they're overwhelmed. A lot of people do this job as a second job. and they don't have time for all of this stuff. And I'm feeling like nobody's considering that bigger picture of getting people on board, training them to the point where they're good at what they're doing without being obsessive over it, and affording to pay for all of that training for all of those people, and the background checks and the fingerprinting stuff and this 9-hour Vermont orientation training. I'm feeling like our program's going to go down, and there is nothing else in our town. Nothing. We are the only childcare providers after school in the whole area. And so when that fails, this whole thing's going to go away and no one's going to have any help. No one's going to have any help in the town. None of the parents are going to have any system to help them. So how is this taking into consideration small rural towns that don't have the resources that you're requiring us to have to be these big fancy systems when we're just a tiny small system and hoping we can provide decent childcare for their families?
So
So
Cindy, oh, go ahead, Ray.
No, I just want to say, like, I really appreciate you sharing that, because I know that many of are similar situations. There's been a staffing crisis. The kids, especially in your age group, are not, I have a 13-year-old and I know a lot of her peers, like, middle schoolers and older elementary schoolers, they're not doing okay. There's a lot going on post-COVID. So I really appreciate, like, the frontline staff, what they're dealing with every day. I want to first say, this is not required. Working STARS is not a requirement. It is a resource to you. It is a program that if you want to engage in it, you can. And we have supports in place to help you with coaching and mentoring through Vermont Afterschool. So that's number one. Number two, Act 76 that just passed last year has specific financial investments that hopefully are out to, like, getting to your programs. There was $20 million in readiness payments that hopefully your program applied for. After school programs were eligible for it. That was 6 months of direct payments to providers to help them with staffing, getting substitutes, giving a little bit of a bonus, or however the program chose to use that money. There's also additional investments coming with the subsidy rates changing in January. So, I'm not minimizing what you're experiencing, because I know that's real, and I know how hard it is to work in a small program in rural Vermont with very little staff or supports. But I will say, I'm also a legislator when I'm not at the CDD, and there's help coming, if not already there. Like, if you haven't applied for readiness programs, please apply. Those are payments directly going to programs that will help you get what you need.
But payments don't make people apply for the job. We have upped our rates. We pay $20 an hour for people, and nobody has applied for the job. Like, you don't understand that they're just not even applying. And then when they do apply, you ask them to do all this other stuff, and they're like, I don't have time for that. Sorry. Like, money doesn't buy all that stuff. It's about boots on the ground and who's supporting these programs. And I'm not sure there's enough people in the legislative world that are understanding that people can't just find more help because you gave us extra money. We just got our first payment today from one of these programs, and it's not going to help us find anybody else to work for us. No one is applying for the job despite the pay raises we've offered. So I don't think anybody's considering it. I really don't. I don't feel it. I don't see it. And money's not going to help buy that program. It's not going to do it. It's not only about money. It's about people and what you're asking them to do once they get there in a part-time job. And it's immense. And I mean, even, okay, so we have to have a Vermont orientation training. That's 9 hours long. Our program has to pay every person we hire to take that 9-hour class.
Cindy,
and not only do they not have time, it's just no one's understanding this bigger picture for help.
I just want to interject, just, I want to be respectful of people's time. I want to kind of reiterate what Ray said, that we are not minimizing it. We see this across the state, even not in rural towns. Chittenden County, I see programs that are even having a hard time finding staff. I understand that that's an issue, but that's kind of outside of this system. I know it's part of the issue, but again, STARS is, you don't have to do STARS if you're not able to because you're short-staffed, right? There are other things you can do. It sounds like your program might benefit from some coaching or mentoring from Vermont Afterschool, or some, just help you with some referrals around different things that are happening in your program. But again, you don't have to do the 9-hour training. The Vermont that is not, you do not have to do the 9 hours. That is a lot focused on early childhood. There is a stipulation where you can provide your own orientation to staff as long as you're covering certain elements. There are many, many, many after-school programs that do not have their staff watch that 9-hour training. Okay, so you can create, you're saying you don't, yes.
No, I know you can do that, but the list is longer than my super long arms of what you have to include in it, and they all have to be made at the same time. It's not easy to even make.
I understand. I understand. What we're trying to get at, though, is there is a level of quality that we want to have in our programs. So I just put in the link in the chat, a link to the new Vermont guidelines for after school summer. So those are brand new. Okay. These are the things we're saying baseline that programs can do to improve quality. We understand that not everybody's going to get there, right? We're all at different places, depending on where you live, depending on your town, your resources, your staff. This is just a framework that folks can use to improve quality if they want to. It's not the only system. You can use the PQA, the program assessment tool, outside of doing STARS. You could use that tool and just do a self-assessment. You could say, I would like someone from Vermont Afterschool to come out and just observe my program and give me some feedback. We're just trying to get programs to take a look at their practices and try to have them be of the highest quality. It doesn't have to be through STARS. So, bigger programs are ready to do this. You're a very small program. There are other things we could do to help support you. And I don't want people to leave this meeting tonight feeling overwhelmed. I don't want people to feel overwhelmed. I want people to understand this is one route to take for program quality. If you just took the guidelines that I just sent you, and you went through that with your staff and did a self-assessment and said, let's pick 2 or 3 of these things to work on. How can we do that? That's working towards quality. Okay. And then when you're at a place where you have staff and you're like, yes, I want to start taking a look at all of these areas, then you can do that. But, really the idea is we want just every program in Vermont, early childhood after school program, to have the best quality possible. And I understand the training is a lot. The training is not required by STARS. The training is required by licensing. To be a licensed program, you have to have staff in your program that have a certain level of qualifications. And I am in full support of that. Do I feel like it can feel overwhelming? Yes. Part-time staff, when you're asking them to even do 9 hours of professional development, it feels like a lot. But they don't have to do that all at once. You can break that up over the course of time. There's online trainings that folks can do through Penn State Extension that are approved by the Child Development Division. I think that if you have specific questions, I would love to work with you to try to ease your mind on this. The staffing piece, I have no solutions for you. it really, you know, we can't make people appear and want to apply for jobs.
And
It is
that's
a
across
real,
every industry right now.
I was just gonna say, it's a
yeah,
real problem across
everywhere.
every industry. So I feel your pain, I hear you. So if you're not ready and you don't have the staff, you can't do this right now. You can't.
And that's okay. Nobody's
And
going to
that's
get
okay.
penalized. It's not a requirement. You know, even post the pilot, there's no penalty for not engaging in STARS. And because all programs are now getting the higher subsidy rate, like you're not losing out by not engaging with it. But if you have the capacity and the resources and the staffing, or when you do, we hope that you do engage with the program, and we're happy to, you know, provide the supports that are needed, you know, when you're at that place where you feel like, oh, I'm ready to take a look at this again.
Right.
But it's certainly not a requirement.
And I know that the fingerprinting and the mandated reporting, it's all time and you've got to pay staff for that. But, you know, as a parent and as a community member and someone living in this wonderful state of ours, do I want my kids being with people every single day that haven't had fingerprints done or haven't done a training in mandated reporting? I would probably say no. I want some skilled people working with my kids. We're trying to elevate our field, and that, you know, it's not just anybody. We're not babysitting kids, right? We want professionals in the programs that know what they're doing, that have an investment in working with kids and being a professional. So are we completely there yet? No. Are we completely there yet with rates of pay or, you know, all of those things? But we're working towards that. And so this is a work in progress. And remember, this is a pilot year. We could get through this year and say, well, this didn't work and that didn't work. And, you know, and so, yeah, and I'll get off my soapbox, but I do understand what you're saying. I just don't want you to walk away feeling overwhelmed and feeling like people that created this don't understand, because I was a program director myself. All of these people, we have been in the trenches, we know, and we're you know, but some problems are just a lot harder to solve, like the staffing one. So not dismissing you at all, just trying to ease your concerns a little bit about having to do all of this when you're not staffed.
Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome.
So being respectful of time, I know we had a good discussion and we're over time a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you know, if there are questions, if you feel like you need support or talk about this more, if you're already engaged with STARS and you don't understand how this is going to affect you or what's going to happen in the pilot year or when your certificate expires, you know, reach out to us, reach out to Trisha. You know, we want to be here as a support. You know, again, the system, I truly believe that when folks who are familiar with, you know, the rating system already and engaged with it, when you start working it, I think people are going to find it easier. It seems overwhelming. A lot. This information is all new, but it is meant to be, you know, self-driving a little bit and give programs more autonomy on what they want to work on. And I think that might seem hard. Like, how do we decide what, you know, we're going to do? But I think once programs get engaged with it, hopefully you'll find it easier and more streamlined than what we had before. But I really appreciate your time and you're sharing your struggles and the work that you're doing every day. We had a cameo there. Hello. Oh, I like the costume. Very cute.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I know that was a lot of information. Again, like Ray said, feel free to follow up with questions.